Hi, my name is Abs Anderson, and I'll be talking about the Digital POWRR Project at Northern Illinois University Libraries. For centuries, the materials on which we captured and passed down our cultural legacies and historical events were primarily physical in nature. Books, carvings, pamphlets, photographs, journals, paintings, letters, artifacts all existed in a format that could be viewed, handled, interpreted, and understood with little to no external intervention required. Many of these items could languish for years and years in long-forgotten spots with minimal degradation, allowing them to be serendipitously rediscovered in the future. For example, archaeologists found the Dead Sea Scrolls in a cave in 1947 and today believe that they had been stored in clay jars for hundreds of years in a harsh environment, and yet they survived. Despite the harsh environmental conditions in the cave over the years, including floods, conservators were able to carefully piece together many parts of the Dead Sea Scrolls. These artifacts are available today for public viewing and scholarly study and will be preserved for future generations. The days of opening a dusty chest in Grandma's attic to find her childhood drawings, old love letters, photographs, and paraphernalia from her first women's rights march are receding into the past. Much of today's materials that could be used by future generations to understand our cultures, events, life experiences, mistakes, and achievements are digital. Videos, photos, social media communications, blogs, digital artwork, news reports, music, articles, emails, nearly all are created and available to us in digital format only. Preserving these materials for future access is a complex challenge. Both researchers' findings and individuals' experience reveal the inherent fragility of this content. Reasons for loss of data include the storage media on which the materials physically reside can fail or become out of date and unusable. These include things like floppy disks. Data storage devices can fail due to exposure to elements like water or sun, physical damage, or simple old age. The software programs with which materials were created become obsolete, making older formats unreadable by newer versions. Think of applications like WordStar, WordPerfect, and Lotus 123, which were popular 30 or 40 years ago. The basic bits that comprise digital content can become corrupt over time. This is something called bit rot. Individuals or organizations donating materials to an archive or library can mismanage or lose some of them before transfer. Materials can become meaningless due to decontextualization. This usually occurs due to a lack of descriptive information or metadata. For example, think of an old family photograph. If no one has written the names of the people in a picture from many years ago down on the back of it, we probably won't know who they are. Like individuals and families, cultural heritage organizations like libraries, archives, and museums collect, create, and steward a rapidly increasing volume of digital content. Some have been able to do a better job of preserving it than others. In some instances, organizations with significant financial resources have been able to devise processes and/or purchase software that can help them accomplish this task. The cultural heritage and information science communities have developed guidelines, best practices, policies, procedures, and processes that can enable an organization to achieve high levels of digital preservation. However, these protocols are often complex, leaving many librarians, archivists, and other practitioners attempting to address the challenge of preserving digital materials feeling overwhelmed. In many cases, organizations have struggled to preserve digital materials. They need pragmatic advice about how to begin to provide better levels of preservation for their digital materials, even if they can't achieve best practice standards. The Digital POWRR Project at Northern Illinois University Libraries provides pragmatic, accessible training that assists caretakers of digital items in their preservation efforts. POWRR is an acronym for Preserving Digital Objects with Restricted Resources. POWRR has worked with large and small institutions alike, but in our experience, organizations devoted to the collection and preservation of resources from the African American, Latinx, Native American, or other minority communities often lack the funds, expertise, or technical infrastructure to adopt best practice workflows for the curation of digital materials. For example, at a training event held within the lands of the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs in the Pacific Northwest, a member of a tribal nation approached the training with a particular set of digital materials weighing on their mind. a box of tapes that held recordings of tribal elders speaking in their native language. Only a few elders were still living, and their language was at risk of being lost with their passing. At the POWRR event, we were able to provide critical digital preservation training and assist them in formulating a plan to rescue the recordings from the legacy media, perform initial curation actions on the recordings, and create a workflow to preserve the recordings of their elders into the future. The Digital POWRR began with a 2011 grant from the Federal Institute of Museum and Library Services for a study of digital preservation challenges and potential solutions at medium-sized and smaller institutions. The study produced a published white paper in 2014, which is available on the project website. Just type POWRR into a search bar to find it. The original Digital POWRR team was comprised of archivists, curators, librarians, and a digital humanist representing these medium-sized and smaller institutions, each of which lacked significant financial resources. They conducted studies of digital preservation situations at 5 Illinois institutions: Northern Illinois University, Illinois State University, Western Illinois University, Chicago State University, and Illinois Wesleyan University. At each of the 5 campuses, librarians and archivists had collected digital content that they knew was very susceptible to loss, yet they had been unable to come up with programmatic and technical solutions to mitigate that risk. Team members had been calling attention to the risks for almost a decade and pushing toward a realistic solution while attempting to triage materials. In the white paper, each institution presented a case study that provided information on its background, the unique challenges it was facing, the composition of its digital collections, and the details of its technical infrastructure. The case studies also contained a summary and review of digital curation and preservation activities currently in use, if any. Team members highlighted the practices and policies they wanted to see implemented and performed a gap analysis by identifying the obstacles that have prevented their organizations from achieving the desired outcomes. They then created action plans for eliminating or maneuvering around those barriers at each institution. Common elements emerged from their gap analyses: a lack of available financial resources, limited or non-existent dedicated staff time for digital preservation activities, and inadequate levels of appropriate technical expertise. Some of the case studies also mentioned a lack of institutional awareness of the fragility of digital content and a lack of cohesive policies and practices across departments as a contributing factor towards the absence of real progress. Early in the study, team members discovered a fundamental misconception preventing many cultural heritage professionals from making meaningful progress towards the development of an effective program. They assumed that digital preservation was an either-or proposition. Either an institution has implemented successful digital curation and preservation measures, or it has not. They soon came to realize that the opposite is true. Digital preservation is best thought of as an incremental, ongoing, and ever-shifting set of actions, reactions, workflows, and policies. This means that practitioners don't have to start by creating or selecting a comprehensive solution and making hard and fast technology choices to be used for the next 20 years. Rather, they can start by taking small steps to prioritize and triage digital collections while working to build awareness and advocate for resources. It is appropriate to focus efforts on the activities that can be performed in the next 6 to 24 months to steward digital content, rather than wait a decade for the potential perfect solution. This may not be an intuitive approach for professionals in the cultural heritage sector accustomed to thinking in terms of decades and centuries, but to wait is to risk catastrophic content loss. The POWRR study based this approach in part on the National Digital Stewardship Alliance's, NDSA, levels of digital preservation. A work in progress by the NDSA, the Levels of Digital Preservation, is intended to be a relatively easy-to-use set of guidelines useful not only for those just beginning to think about preserving their digital assets, but also for institutions planning the next steps in enhancing their existing digital preservation systems and workflows. It allows institutions to assess the level of preservation achieved for specific materials in their custody or their entire preservation infrastructure. It is not designed to assess the robustness of digital preservation programs as a whole, since it does not cover such things as policies, staffing, or organizational support. The guidelines are organized into 5 functional areas that are at the heart of digital preservation systems: storage and geographic location, file fixity and data integrity, information security, metadata, and file formats. The NDSA levels approach makes it easy to determine where an institution's technical infrastructures and current workflows stand within the framework. At the time of the study, most of the POWRR institutions had not yet reached level 1 in some categories. This approach also leads to institutions recognizing specific incremental steps they can take to shift a single square to the right for just one of the functional areas, such as improving storage practices from standalone media such as CD-ROMs or DVDs to networked or geographically distributed servers. Numerous resources discussing fundamental activities like these are freely available. Small steps move institutions closer to the end goal of stabilizing and preserving digital materials. Institutions should not wait to take level 1 actions they are capable of today while they determine how to move from level 2 to level 3 and beyond. Most practitioners are capable of taking these fundamental actions with resources and skills currently at their disposal. Indeed, the notion that it is necessary to research all available tools and services exhaustively before taking any basic steps to secure digital content is yet another misconception that often prevents any progress from occurring. The number of options makes this impractical. Fortunately, practitioners can get started with simple, freely available triage tools while researching which of the more robust solutions will best suit their needs. The POWRR team recommends this approach as a bridge to help manage digital objects in a responsible way while practitioners address their institutional cultures and begin laying foundations for suitable digital preservation solutions and management activities. Indeed, many of the most robust and comprehensive tools and services assume that level 1 triage activities, like getting data off disparate storage media and making a basic inventory of materials, have already taken place. To address the overwhelming number of available tools at the time of funding, the POWRR team developed a tool grid for ease of comparison. The costs of digital preservation tools and services vary from those that are freely available via open source communities to those that are cost prohibitive for smaller institutions. Different tools and services perform different functions in the digital curation lifecycle. The POWRR white paper emphasized that librarians, archivists, and other practitioners seeking to increase their institution's level of digital preservation capacity should not necessarily think in terms of buying or installing a single product or service to accomplish this. Rather, open source tools that complete one aspect of the digital preservation process can be assembled into a low-cost workflow that can best address an individual institution's unique situation. Many of the tools discussed in the original POWRR study have become obsolete or unavailable. For a more up-to-date resource, please consult COPTR, the community-owned digital preservation tool registry online. Just type COPTR into a search bar to find the webpage. After 3 years of working together, the POWRR team developed into a community of practice, solving common problems in radically different environments. While they didn't set out to do so, they quickly learned the importance of collaboration and cooperation in digital preservation work. This lesson was particularly crucial in leading them to approach other organizations and communities of practice who, they were surprised to learn, were just as eager to speak with them. They initially entered this project believing that they had to develop digital preservation programs for themselves, as larger organizations had already solved the problem and had moved on to other projects. They could not have been more wrong on both counts. Not only were many larger organizations eager to communicate and help, they learned that a number were still struggling with implementing basic digital curation and preservation infrastructures and policies. Smaller and medium-sized organizations needing digital preservation help were not as alone as they thought they were, but they need to help each other while helping themselves with basic triage activities. Talking to peers is not enough to move digital preservation forward. Advocacy across an institution is integral to digital preservation success. Lack of financial resources is often related to a lack of institutional awareness. Awareness leads to identifying priorities, which allows for redirecting or acquiring needed resources. Even the smallest cultural heritage institutions can be complex organizations with numerous stakeholders, like professional staffs, administrators, boards of trustees, and donors. Grassroots advocacy, through building a large vocal network of people investing in solving the digital preservation problem, is the most effective way to gain the attention of those in charge of allocating resources. In most cases, a new program takes shape and reaches implementation only when a critical mass of an institution's community has come to agree that it is the appropriate way forward. Educating and influencing stakeholders, including faculty, staff, students, administrators, donors, etc., is therefore crucial to the successful development of a digital preservation program where none had previously existed. The POWRR study that I've just described emphasized the following points. Although many of the tool technologies available have changed, this basic approach still holds true. The fragility of digital materials presents a serious threat to libraries, museums, archives, and other cultural heritage organizations holding these types of collections. A rapidly growing number of professionals are aware of this risk and the need for action. They also know of the standards and best practices around digital curation and preservation, but many of them are struggling to decide how to move forward with addressing the problem effectively. Some institutions have created and implemented robust digital preservation programs. However, medium-sized and smaller organizations with fewer resources, like those of the POWRR institutions, are in an especially vulnerable position. Lacking the specialization of responsibility that comes with a larger staff and budget, practitioners often feel overwhelmed by the problem and unable to explore potential solutions. The significant time commitment required for merely studying the problem and identifying workable solutions alone, among the many competing theories and recommendations, is out of reach for a majority of practitioners. Many do not know how to take the next steps from awareness to action, and thus the risk remains unmitigated. Small and medium-sized institutions with limited resources can in fact make progress towards the effective preservation of digital materials in the following ways. Practitioners can make progress by doing the following things. 1. Understand that digital preservation is an incremental process. Digital preservation is achieved through cumulative activities of increasing effectiveness. It is time to embrace a good enough approach to digital preservation. Do not begin by aiming for designing and implementing a robust program with a detailed workflow for ingesting digital objects into a technical infrastructure fully in keeping with standards and best practices. Rather, 2. Focus on a set of discrete activities that can immediately yield higher levels of preservation, however modest. These can include inventorying your existing content, educating content creators, and designing an ingest workflow. Examples of the activities POWRR chose to start with can be found on the project website. These activities will often give you better information with which to 3. Examine your institution's strengths and potential challenges to committing resources to its digital legacy. Understanding where you are, where you want to be, identifying roadblocks preventing you from getting there, and connecting with allies who can help you move further along the way is crucial to this process. Sole practitioners cannot do this alone. Planning and advocacy is just as important as directly managing materials. Finally, 4. When exploring more robust technical solutions, understand that selecting more than one tool or service may be preferable. Different levels of effectiveness at different price points can match up with different sets of materials your institution has identified as having different preservation priorities. Digital POWRR team members each sought sensible workflows for their unique situations. They believe that collaborating within communities and capturing sufficient levels of metadata using simple accessioning tools will position us to move beyond near-term security. They have investigated more robust solutions and believe that there are tools and services available within reach of small and medium-sized organizations with restricted resources. However, there is no one-size-fits-all answer for all institutions or even for different digital collections needing preservation. Nevertheless, practitioners now have well-defined, manageable activities that they can engage in using the resources they already have while they explore reasonable implementation solutions for our institutions and advocate for the resources they will need in the future.